I'm Dave Locker, and that's Adam Scher, and the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. Another monster night last night. I don't know how you do it, man. Congrats.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I actually DM'd Adam the other day. I was like, all right, so he's half a point out of the queue. He's second place in the $10. He's first place every single night. And he did it with like a White Sox stack on a night that nobody played him. Adam, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's been a nice run for him. Been pretty fun to watch.
Anyway, let's get started. We got 15 games. Anything before Adam or Alex, anything before we get started on the game-by-game analysis that we want to talk about, whether it be weather issues or anything specific to the slate that you think is necessary?
Weather's a mess. Alex can obviously speak to it better than I can, but several games I think that we're going to have to make, kind of later decisions on.
All right. Yeah, that DC game, man. What a tilt fest that was.
Yeah, man, that was it was out of nowhere. But I guess those of us who played DFS a couple of years ago remember that DC, they just randomly postpone games sometimes.
Yeah, I thought about it as I was deciding if I was going to play Corbin or not, and then I was like, yeah, there's no way they do it again.
Yeah, there's no way what?
That they do it again.
Oh, I know. And Alex said it was out of nowhere. By out of nowhere, he means there was literally rain nowhere. Like, I know it started raining around 9:30 p.m., but outside of that, there were pictures and tweets and videos of just clear skies. Just ridiculous.
And the Nationals Twitter account just kept tweeting pictures of the radar saying there's rain in the area, but there was never rain over the stadium.
I know. Every 30 minutes, we're still on a delay. I'm waiting for updates, and then you get the postponement. The Phillies Twitter was like as confused as anybody.
Right.
They weren't being oh, God, what a disaster. Well, we'll try and avoid it today. Let's hope. Let's just jump right into it, fellas. Alex, I'll start with you. We've got Tampa. We've got the New York Yankees. And if you want, we can just hit on weather once we get to each game instead of recapping it or instead of highlighting it now. We get to a game we think weather's going to be an issue. We'll touch on it there so we can be a little bit more concise. Yankees and Tampa Bay. J.A. Happ, who has looked a lot better of late. Still not a super high upside pitcher, but a high strikeout team in the Tampa Bay Rays. He's $7,500 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, on Yahoo, J.A. Happ's coming in at $38. And on FanDuel, $7,900. So he is cheap. It is a high strikeout matchup, but also a difficult team to face. And on the opposite side, you got Ryan Stanek opening. Ryan Yarbrough is your probable left-handed long reliever. He could be in for a long day here, especially now that the Yankees are really starting to get healthy. What do you make of this one?
I think that definitely not a great spot for pitching. The over-under of 9.7 it shows it's kind of a batter's game here. And Tampa against the Yankees have a team total of 4.8. Happ, maybe you consider him, but his strikeouts in the year are down to 20%. The matchup is just average for strikeouts, and their lineup's pretty good. So he's definitely not jumping out for me. And then Yarbrough just facing one of the tougher teams in the league, and he's not a great strikeout pitcher, so not really on my radar at all.
Any interest for you here, Adam, in pitching? If not, we can go to hitting.
No, not really. If I had to take one of the two, it would be Happ, just because Tampa does have strikeouts in their lineup. But I think this is a slate where there's some pretty clear top pitching options for me in every price range, and so I don't think that I'll be going too far off the board to Happ.
What about bats here? Ryan Yarbrough, not a terrible pitcher, but a Yankees team that's got a ton of power from really top to bottom at this point. They can get super right heavy against this lefty end. We've got Giancarlo Stanton back in the lineup batting fifth. Edwin Encarnacion batting sixth. I mean, this lineup has gotten so potent right now that Didi is batting seventh and Gleyber Torres is batting eighth.
Yeah, really good Yankees lineup. I'm not getting in my initial crunch, at least I wasn't getting to a lot of offense in this game. I think Yarbrough is decent. I think Happ is decent. But, obviously the Yankees are a really high upside team. It's just that they're really expensive. You have Sanchez, Encarnacion, Stanton all over 5K. Luke Voigt's almost 5K. So just kind of tough to get to them.
Do you have any interest in these Yankee bats, Alex, at Yankee Stadium? Good park, very average pitcher.
Yeah, I think the team total is encouraging at 5.5, but you are paying pretty high prices, and they're definitely not a team that's going to jump out in optimizer. So I kind of like them as a pay up to be contrarian spot, especially on FanDuel. I don't have any. Well, basically on all three sites, every single batter is below average value, but as a team, they have pretty good potential. So that's kind of on my radar for contrarian spot, but. For Tampa Bay, I think that there's some guys that are pretty good values, particularly. This can't be right? I have Darno leading off.
Yeah, Darno is leading off. I hadn't seen that until just now.
Man.
Which is very appealing.
Yeah, I mean that is insane. Like, cause I mean having a catcher leading off, that's.
Well, he's playing first base today. Zunino's batting eighth in the catcher spot.
Oh man, that's crazy. So yeah, I think that he's very appealing on sites where you need a catcher.
Adam, does this change anything for you? Is it obviously? I think we'd all agree that a catcher leading off at a pretty discounted price at Yankee Stadium. We don't need to go much further with that. But
yeah.
But does this change anything for you with Hap, knowing that you have Zunino and Darno in the lineup and Adames batting fifth, Heredia batting seventh, Wendell in the 9-hole? It's not the greatest lineup.
No, it's not the greatest lineup. It doesn't really change much for me with Hap because the issues for me had more to do with Hap than the Rays lineup anyway. And it also just has to do with other pitchers that are available on the slate. Like if the Pittsburgh game were to get postponed or something, I'd have more interest in Hap. But as it is right now, I'd rather get, like Mitch Keller. I'd rather get to some of the guys a little bit more expensive than Hap.
All right. And we will talk about that right now. I'll stick with you. Pittsburgh and Detroit. Mitch Keller, Daniel Norris. I had mentioned to Josh today on the strategy show that Daniel Norris has really just been one of those wildly pedestrian guys. Like you expect 3 runs and 5 innings every game, no more, no less. He hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been good. He doesn't give up a ton of power. He's just there. As far as Mitch Keller goes, he struck out 9 batters in 7 innings, but he's been crushed again. Look, 2 difficult matchups. One of them at Great American, one of them against a ridiculously red-hot Braves team that just seems to drop 19 runs every single day. But Mitch Keller's going to get a little bit of ownership here, not a ton. His BABIP is through the roof. It's a very small sample. But where do you stand on him? You said you're kind of interested here. He's a top prospect that we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I love Mitch Keller here. I had a lot of him in those first 2 starts. Obviously, didn't go great. The strikeouts were there. The run prevention was not. But this is his first start in PNC, which is a better park for him to pitch in than Cincinnati or Atlanta. It's against the Tigers team whose active roster has the second highest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching and the second lowest walk percentage. At AAA this year, Keller struck out about 30% of hitters, walked about 10%. So the strikeout stuff, clearly there. Steamer projects him for 8.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's cheap, and I really like Keller here, whether it be as an SP2 or even an SP1. Like he's 5,500 on FanDuel. I think that he actually has raw point upside to where it's not like it's necessary, but if you did have 2 really expensive stacks that you wanted to play together, I think you could even go to Keller there.
Alex, do you like Keller here?
Absolutely. I think that just bargain bin price on all 3 sites. He's been getting the strikeouts and the matchup is good.
Okay. What about bats in this game? It's clearly a favorable park for pitchers. And there isn't a whole lot of interest really in Daniel Norris ever. Alex, any bats here from either side?
Yeah, as much as I like Keller, I think that the Tigers stack is looking like a nice value on DraftKings. Probably not on the other sites, but I'm thinking that they might be a little bit overowned compared to their 4.4 team total. On the other side, the only guy really jumping out at me is Jung Ho Kang, just because of the price tag and the position.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what he said. You have nice prices on DraftKings on Kristen Stewart and Castellanos in particular, but there is a pretty good chance I think that they're higher owned than they really should be. And then as far as the Pirates go, you do have a good price tag on Jung Ho Gong. It's decent spot for Starling Marte, but outfield was just loaded today, so not a priority for me.
What type of exposure do you think you'll have towards Keller?
I would expect him to be probably in my top 3 owned pitchers.
Okay. Let's talk about the Phillies and Nationals. Bringing up some bad memories, recent memories. But here we are, Alex, and now it's a 15-game slate, whereas Corbin was really appealing yesterday. In a vacuum, he still makes for a good play. But I've got a few guys priced around him a little bit higher than him that I just really, really like today. So while I still think he has the same ceiling, of course, as he did yesterday, I don't have as much interest as I would just because of some of the guys that are priced close to him. For example, a Chalk Flaherty, who I still love, and Brandon Woodruff against the San Diego Padres. Where are you at on Patrick Corbin here compared to the rest of the arms?
I think he's playable. The weather is a big issue, as we saw yesterday. Like, kind of unpredictable what they'll do. And they have a game on Thursday with the Phillies. So they're doing a doubleheader tomorrow. They could easily do a doubleheader on Thursday. So I don't think there's any sort of need to play the game. But right now the radar, it doesn't look very concerning. It's really the forecast models are projecting rain. So unless I see some sort of development in the radar in the next hour, I'll probably leave this game in. I definitely think Corbin is appealing. Maybe not as much as some of the other pitchers on the slate, but in isolation, 26% Ks. The team he's facing strikes out about 10% more than average. The only question mark is that the Phillies have a 4.7 team total, which is pretty high for a pitcher of Corbin's quality. But on DraftKings, that's built into the price. On FanDuel and Yahoo, he's priced a little bit higher, so I'm not going to end up on him.
What about you, Adam, with this one here?
I really like the price.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really like the price tag on DraftKings, of course. I had a lot of him yesterday. Obviously, didn't work out, but it's the same spot here. You're still getting a lineup without JT Realmuto. You're still getting, the Sean Rodriguez, Roman Quinn, Cesar Hernandez, Andrew Knapp, pitcher, bottom of the order. So not a very imposing lineup with a bunch of guys injured for Philadelphia. And Corbin just hasn't been as good as last year, but he's still good. The price tag, it takes into account, I think, the matchup and the way he's been pitching this year. So he's clearly at a good price point. It just really comes down to the weather here. With it being a 15-game slate, with there being plenty of pitching that I feel good about, I don't feel like I need to take a huge chance on a pitcher not getting points.
All right. And I'm with you. Yesterday, I did think that it was worth the risk, but I also thought the risk was a lot less than it was, apparently.
Yeah, I thought the risk, and it seems like the risk yesterday was probably lower than it is today, and there were fewer options to go to yesterday.
Right, more justified and less extreme. Was it Alex that had mentioned? I think it was you, Alex, that mentioned, because I remember we were on a work call, and I had made a joke about how the Washington Nationals has just been brutal about calling games when a bad pitcher's on the mound. And didn't you say something about the league took over and wasn't allowing them to make the decisions anymore?
Yeah, I thought that's what happened. But clearly,
yeah, me too.
I thought I had seen that too, and then I Googled it, and not the case.
Right.
Well,
so
it was never an official statement. It was kind of reading between the lines, or I think they abused it, and then someone stepped in, but apparently they stepped out, and we just never really informed.
So basically, the league said, "Hey guys, please don't be assholes. We're not going to do anything, but just don't dick us over." That's good.
And then they behaved for a couple of years, and now they're back to
not even a couple of years, dude. That was not 3 years ago.
It was 2 years ago, right?
Maybe, but that would give them
maybe
behaving. Either way, it doesn't matter. They pissed me off, but whatever. Look, if you're playing 150 lineups, I still have the same interest in Juan Soto as I did yesterday, and that was brutal. I still like the lefties a lot against Arrieta. It's a shame because the weather's obviously a concern. I still like Kingery and Hoskins batting 3 and 4. Rodriguez is batting 5th in the order, and he's dirt cheap. not good. But Adam, like if you were to say that rain wasn't an issue, it is obviously, but we got to give the information unadulterated here. If we were to say the weather wasn't a thing, there would be a lot of good bats in this game.
Yeah, I would specifically love Soto and Matt Adams. Not really sure how Juan Soto is $4,100 on DraftKings in this spot or any spot, but especially this spot. So I would really like him. I would like Adams. I think Gomes would be a good value option at catcher. You prefer lefties against Arrieta, but Gomes is just really, really cheap. You have Eaton, as a lefty towards the top of the order as well. And then, kind of some underpriced right-handed power on Philadelphia as well. Rhys Hoskins in particular, Segura leading off. So it is a game where I have interest in bats if the weather cooperates, particularly lefties on the Nat side.
For sure. I think, Alex, that was the biggest destructive aspect of yesterday's game, because I didn't just like Corbin. I liked hitters from both sides. So it was like a wash everywhere. Are you willing to target bats in this one?
I'm going to reserve the weather judgment for about an hour and see the radar, but I think the Nationals are definitely one of the better stacks of the day. The team total of 5.6 is pretty high. One of the really interesting things is the two guys I projected highest, Trey Turner and Anthony Rendon, are the lowest owned on the team, which is
right.
like very peculiar, and I think that's something you can take advantage of in tournaments.
Yeah, and it's likely because for some reason Juan Soto is priced in the basement on DraftKings. $4,100 is ridiculous. He's cheaper than Matt Adams. I don't know. Maybe it's a lefty-righty thing, and Rendon and Turner are really expensive. But I'm with you there. It's a great way to get leverage. Let's keep moving then. Unless you have any thoughts on the Philly bats, Alex.
Nothing really jumping out at me. Just saw on Yahoo there's some good values at the bottom of the order, but probably not worth going there.
All right. Angels, Toronto. We'll stick with you. Tyler Skaggs, Marcus Stroman. One of the good real-life pitchers, bad fantasy pitchers on today's slate. We've seen that from him ever since the start of his career. Tyler Skaggs, on the other hand, I could probably make an argument for him on most nights, but not when he's priced where he is. Do you have any pitching interest here, Alex?
I'm definitely not going to pitchers here, unless I'm just trying to be super contrarian. Skaggs is just priced at 8,500, which, given the fact Toronto has a 4.8 team total, seems a little bit too high. And Stroman's strikeouts are only 18% on the year. The strikeout matchup is abysmal versus the Angels always, so I'm going to pitch in that for the guys.
Yeah, Adam, I'm not sure much needs to be said additionally on that.
No, I don't have pitching here either. It's all about bats for me.
Well, let's talk about them.
Yeah, so I mean, the Blue Jays give you some nice right-handed power at affordable price tags, with Randall Grichuk sitting at 3,500 on DraftKings, Vlad Guerrero's at 3,800. Both of them play pretty deep positions on this slate, but they do give you a lot of power upside. And then on the other side, Stroman, not a pitcher that I really love to pick on, but the Angels are a good offense, and they do have some power, particularly with Trout and Ohtani hitting, second and third, the two guys that I roster, pretty much every slate, and I'm getting to them again today.
Yeah. By the way, Adam, maybe you can answer this. Just backpedaling for a second. The Phillies total opened at 5-1, and then around 11 o'clock this morning, it was at 5. Now it's at 4-2. The obvious explanation would have been that it was for a scheduled pitcher not named Patrick Corbin, but they had already been announced to start. Do you have any thoughts on that? The run total dropping almost a full run here throughout the day.
I'm guessing it is just the pitching, because last night Fetty was the starter. So
you would think so.
I don't know what time they announced that Corbin would be pitching this game, but that's the only thing that would make sense to me.
All right. Do you know who was scheduled for the Phillies?
It was Eflin and Fetty.
See, that's what's weird, because the Nats went from 5-1 to 5-4. And
Arrieta's worse than Eflin.
What?
Arrieta's worse than Eflin.
That's my point. It went up.
Right.
My general feeling on this is that you just look at what the lines are at the most recent update, and that's probably going to be the most accurate. I don't worry too much about the line movement or whatever.
I just wasn't sure if anything had swayed it heavily. So, and no, Adam, I'm saying it went up after Ariette. Oh yeah. What am I? You're
Yeah,
right.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I got mixed up there. Anyway, Alex, bats here against Skaggs. I don't. The Angels have been really good, man. Like they really are a legitimately solid offense from top to bottom. Now they've got Stroman back, but all of them play outfield, and Stroman's decent. Like, do you go back to the Angels here tonight?
I think you can definitely make an argument to go to them. Definitely not in a smash spot compared to last night because Stroman is a decent pitcher, slightly above league average if you're just going off his performance this year. But these guys are grading out as pretty good values on each site, particularly DraftKings. So I think that you can definitely make a nice stack.
What about the Toronto bats that Adam just spoke on?
I like certain guys in the lineup on each site. Guerrero is really well priced, and then Randall Grichuk. Yeah, just the same guys Adam likes.
All right. And let's see here. Cincinnati, Houston. We've got Verlander, and we've got this at Great American Ballpark. Adam, this is one of those parks where after some rain, you always see the balls flying out of there. At least that's been our theory. Misty dongs, we call them. 85% humidity. It's pretty warm there. I mean, this really is one of the most pitcher-friendly parks in the league, especially when it starts to warm up. The DH or the lack of a DH really would have sucked if Alvarez didn't get a spot in the lineup. And that was a conversation between Josh and myself earlier today, but he's batting third. He's in left field, and that's a beautiful thing. But first we can talk about Verlander if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a weird spot with Verlander here because it's obviously Justin Verlander. He's facing a team with one of the higher strikeout percentages against right-handed pitching this year. It's not a good park for pitching, but it's still Justin Verlander. The thing is, though, that he's really expensive on a slate where there's a lot of upside in the mid-range at pitcher. Even if the weather cooperates, looking to someone like Jacob deGrom, who's in a terrible matchup, but is just a really good pitcher that offers you a similar ceiling at a much cheaper price point than Verlander. So I think he's someone that, maybe I'd have more interest in cash than tournaments, just because I think, obviously the floor is really high. But I don't know how much I'll get to in tournaments, just because I'm perfectly happy to stick in the mid-range pitcher on the slate and, hope that Verlander doesn't score like 45 points.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if we're on the same guys. You obviously mentioned Keller, but again, Woodruff and Flaherty are two guys that I have a lot of love for today.
Yep.
Alex, do you see yourself going to Verlander here? I mean, he's always pretty chalky, but this is an odd slate, a kind of weird matchup, tough park, and a deep pitching slate, at least in the mid-range and upper mid-range.
I agree with everything you guys said. The one way I'd end up with Verlander is if I just really love a really cheap, like, long shot stack. And Verlander is my highest projected guy of the night. But as far as the value, he's not going to help you in a tournament.
Yeah. All right, I'll also point out I probably would get more Verlander if I end up having to take deGrom and Corbin out of my player pool.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Alex, let's talk about batters here. I mentioned Yordan Alvarez, who's just been ridiculous since being called up. The guy's nasty. And he's got a matchup with DeSclafani, who has been good against righties, as expected, and really struggled against good against righties, really struggled against lefties. Alvarez has been a monster at the plate. He's batting third. They got him into the lineup, which was obviously the right thing to do. But then looking at this, somebody had to sit. There is is it Reddick that would be Reddick? Right? Yeah. No Reddick here. I liked all the lefties if they found a way to get like Reddick, Brantley, and Alvarez, but Alvarez clearly my number one bat here. Who's your top bat, Alex, if any, from this game?
I mean, Alvarez has been on fire, 46% ISO so far over 32 appearances. So that's pretty encouraging.
Decent.
The price is pretty high on all three sites, so I think that I think he's fairly priced, probably and I actually like going to Bregman and Brantley a little bit more. Bregman especially has been having a ton of power this year. Really, really great numbers at the dish, and then Brantley, definitely not quite as good at fantasy as Bregman or Alvarez, but like the lineup spot and the platoon split. So I think those are guys, and then Tyler White, just really cheap, and he'll help you make all the salaries work.
How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm getting to Houston as a top 5 stack here. DeSclafani, like you said, he is good against righties, and there's not a lot of lefties in this lineup. But you do have 2 really good lefties with Brantley and Alvarez. You have a great hitter leading off in Bregman, and then you also have, for the most part, a kind of an expensive stack with Gurriel, at sub 4K hitting cleanup. Tyler White's really cheap, also really bad, but really cheap. It's just a really good park for hitters. 3 really good hitters at the top, and then some cheap guys you can fill in behind them. Chirinos is overpriced, but he does have a lot of power for a catcher. So, getting there is not the end of the world either. So I like the Astros in general, and then it's the 3 guys at the top that I'm getting the most of.
So Bregman, Brantley, Alvarez are your top 3 here, right?
Yep.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, and that active roster has one of the highest fly ball rates in the league. DeSclafani, and a lot of these guys just don't strike out anyway. If you're going to put the balls in play in the air, I could think of a lot of places I'd rather have Great American Ballpark over. So yeah, I know Josh was actually talking about like Cincinnati stacks today as cheap bats or maybe like pairings. Do you guys have anything here? If not, we can go on to Atlanta.
No. Like Suarez is really, really cheap. They're cheap, so you're getting a lot of power from like about. What
I said, and that's why he brought it up at all.
Right? Yeah, I mean, like if you need a one-off with a lot of power, like Suarez gets that done, but he's almost the same price as Vlad Guerrero. I'd rather have Guerrero.
Yeah, I do. Dietrich isn't the craziest idea. I mean, like he does have a lot of pop. And Verlander has given up 17 home runs this year. Him and Garrett Cole, man, just a wicked amount of solo shots. And you see it quite often. So it's not crazy to think a cheap Dietrich or Eugenio Suarez could homer. It's just still Justin Verlander, and he's one of the best pitchers in the league.
Yeah. I mean, 9.1% of balls hit against Verlander this year have been barreled. So that, really stands out compared to other pitchers of his talent level is the highest.
That's not low.
No.
Alex, any thoughts on this?
If Verlander was super chalk, I might think he could get some leverage, but since he's only projected for moderate ownership, I don't really see much point.
All right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. On most slates, he's like always the highest owned pitcher, and that's not going to be the case today. But he does give up a good amount of home runs, and we've seen that all season long. I actually was looking at how many home runs he gave up. That were 15 of 17 home runs are solo shots this year from Verlander. That's the way to do it if you're going to do it. All right, Adam, Atlanta, New York Mets. And again, we can talk weather when we get to the games. Jacob deGrom, Julio Teheran, who is egregiously overpriced on DraftKings. That's just silliness. But deGrom, man, we had a long discussion this morning and kind of came in on slightly opposite sides. I think we came to a bit of an understanding, but I think deGrom is actually reasonably priced here given the matchup. I don't think it's the greatest value. I think it's still good, and he's one of the best pitchers in the league, but I don't think it's as egregious as we've seen with guys like Sale recently and deGrom maybe 2 starts ago. Tell me where you weigh in on this.
It's a bad matchup for deGrom. I mean, Atlanta's a really good offense. It's a park that plays up left-handed power. They don't strike out a lot. But in tournaments where you're just trying to get as much upside into your lineups as you can within the salary cap, there's no question that deGrom's one of the better pitchers in baseball. He has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate this year. He has the second best 2-strike percentage out of all starters that have thrown at least 750 pitches this season. He's a really, really good pitcher at an affordable price point. So in tournaments, I have some interest. The weather here does really concern me because it looks like it's just going to be rain, popping up throughout the night and really good chances of delay. So that concerns me. But if that were to somehow clear up in the next hour and a half, I would have a lot of interest in DeGrom in tournaments. In cash games, I think I would either want to save some money to someone like a Flaherty or find the money for Verlander.
Weigh in on this, Alex. Where are you out on DeGrom today?
First off, I comment on the weather. What I'm seeing in the radar is that there is a system passing through. But I think it's more likely to be a late start than anything because there's a clear edge to the system, and it looks like it will pass around 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern, and there's a big gap between that and the future rain. So I'm not currently worried about the weather here. I think that DeGrom, great pitcher, 30% Ks on the year. The strikeout matchup versus Atlanta, not so great. They only struck out 21%, which is 10% less than the league average. And I think they're a pretty tough lineup too. So I think that the matchup's tough. The price is high. And I think it's fair on DraftKings, but on FanDuel and Yahoo, he's priced a little bit too high.
Yeah, and another thing that kind of stands out about this team, even though you look at them and you're like, oh, it's pretty much the same lineup as last year. Well, last year, Dansby Swanson wasn't good, and he's legitimately good this year. Austin Riley is hitting really well. Josh Donaldson has been exhumed from his grave. So, this lineup top to bottom last year, you'd be like, okay, they're all right. Adam, this year, a few guys that were pedestrian last year or maybe weren't in the lineup are hitting really well this year. And the whole lineup, almost from top to bottom, even Albies at the 8-hole have some threatening power, or at least.
Yeah, if you're sweating a pitcher against the Braves, no matter what point in the lineup you turn the game on, you're not like, oh, okay, good, he's at this part of the order.
Right.
It's
the only one is when he gets to the pitcher.
Right, exactly. And I think it's worth pointing out too, because we talk a lot of times because it's easy to talk about how a team has done in the aggregate, but with a team like the Braves, it's not like there's a couple guys really just pulling everything up. Obviously they have a couple hitters that are better than the rest, but almost the entire lineup is good hitters.
Right. Yeah. It's not like the Houston 3 or 4 Houston batters pulling their K rate down to 16% when all of the guys were injured.
Right, or like Kansas City, where we've talked about they have the 3 good hitters at the top and then a bunch of trash.
Yeah, it's a great point. Anything else on this one? We want to talk any hitters here. We've got Julio Turon on the other side, and I know Alex, you mentioned yesterday cheap New York Mets bats. Many of them are discounted again today. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's some really good values here. Robinson Cano, as always. One additional point I'd mention is that Teheran and DeGrom both strike out far less than average for pitcher, so that's kind of a knock against both of the starters here. Obviously, only DeGrom I'm really considering. What I'm seeing is the really good values on the Mets are also going to be really, really high owned.
Yeah.
So that mitigates some of my interest.
All right, Adam?
Yeah, there's some nice price tags. Cano's not someone that I really love rostering when he's popular, but there's no question that he's underpriced. Conforto's in a pretty nice spot, but the outfield's really, really deep. So nothing that I think grades out as a huge priority for me.
All right, and I'm assuming nothing on the Braves side either.
No.
All right. Well, let's move on here. We're almost halfway through it. We still got a bunch of games to go, though. All right. You just set up here. Move it on over. All right, here we go. Cubs, White Sox, Adam, Cole Hamels, Ivan Nova. Hamels has looked very good lately. He is still a good pitcher. That's perfectly fine considering him a strong arm, but I don't think that he's worth this price. I don't even think so against the White Sox, quite honestly. We'll get your take on this. On the other side, Nova, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about with Cubs bats here. There's no significant wind or anything, no wild weather conditions at Wrigley, but it's, 70 degrees and pretty mild there all in all. Very high total, and big favorite is Cole Hamels here against the White Sox.
Yeah, I'm not particularly interested in Hamels on DraftKings, but he is affordable on FanDuel and Yahoo. I don't think he's like a must play or anything because he's in the same price point as guys like Flaherty, but it is an affordable price tag on those two sites. He has the same strikeout percentage as Clayton Kershaw this year. Walk percentage is about double Kershaw's, but you're getting that very similar upside against the White Sox, who have the 5th highest strikeout percentage against left-handed pitching on their active roster since the start of last season. And Hamels has been good this season. So I think that, FanDuel and Yahoo, Hamels is a pretty strong play.
I had actually mentioned this morning that if I'm going to go to one of those guys, and I'm not saying they're either of my top options, but I would rather take Hamels over Kershaw. It's not like Kershaw's got a markedly higher ceiling anymore. They actually, if you look at their numbers, Adam, very, very similar numbers across the board for Kershaw and Hamels this year, except Hamels is still cheaper.
Yeah, really, really similar numbers. And so that's why I think that on FanDuel and Yahoo, where you're getting Hamels at a significant discount from Kershaw, I'd rather get to Hamels.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Alex, what are you doing with pitching in this one?
I think Hamels is in play. As Adam mentioned, the price tag is appealing on FanDuel. He's not a great strikeout pitcher, 24% of the year. It's a good strikeout matchup, though. But the team total of the White Sox is probably only, I think, fourth lowest. So guys like Kershaw and Flaherty are projected to do better as far as run prevention. So he's not going to be a top pitcher as far as projection, but on FanDuel the value is really nice.
All right, let's talk about hitters then, Alex. Chicago Cubs with a pretty high total. I think they sit at 5.1 here. Let's see here. Is it 5.1? It's up there. I know that. Yeah, 5.1 for the Cubs. 212 money line favorites at Wrigley against Nova, and some interesting bats from top to bottom. What are your thoughts here on the Cubs?
I think they're a decent play. The ownership's a little bit higher than I would like. If I'll give you guys a sneak peek if you're not members of my Top Stacks tool. The FanDuel ownership is 8.3%, and the chance that they're going to be the top stack based on my calculation is 4.9%. On DraftKings, 6.7 to 4.7. On Yahoo, they're quite low, and so I like them on Yahoo a little bit more. But that ratio isn't that favorable. One way you can mitigate the ownership is if you fade Schwarber at the top. Pretty scary to do because if the Cubs go off, he'll probably get 5-6 plate appearances, and never love that. But I think that you really get an edge in the ownership if you don't have him on your team. On the other side, on DraftKings, I really like the price tags of Jose Rondon, Ryan Cordell, and Yolmer Sanchez, each priced at $2,200, which is as low as you'll see guys in an actual lineup, and that will help you put together a roster with some really good players around it.
Adam?
Yeah, mostly Cubs bats for me. Didn't get to a ton on DraftKings, kind of was surprised. But Schwarber, like Alex said, really popular, but also a good value. So, if you're contrarian elsewhere, Schwarber obviously a good play. You prefer lefties against Nova. Rizzo is a good play as well. Chris Bryant, obviously a really good hitter, but he's expensive and right-handed. Same goes for Baez. So I think it's more likely probably that I just mix in some like Schwarber and Rizzo in some of my more contrarian stacks.
So not huge on the stacks, more so one-offs.
Yeah, that's how it's looking for me, at least right now.
All right. We'll stay with you, Adam. Texas and Cleveland. Zach Plesac, Adrian Sampson. I honestly feel like he's just a pedestrian righty who wasn't as bad as I thought he was and definitely wasn't as good as he looked. That's how I'm going to treat it until further notice. And that's basically what his recent numbers have dictated anyway. Where are you at on him and Plesac, who has been very solid since being brought up?
Yeah, I think that Sampson is better than I was giving him credit for early in the season. I don't think he's an ace or anything like that. I don't have interest in rostering him here. But I think that maybe Cleveland goes a little bit over-owned because projections are very, very high on Cleveland. It is obviously a good park. But Sampson, even when he was bad, did a better job against lefties than righties. For the season, he's held lefties to a 315 expected WOBA, 175 ISO, compared to a 393 expected WOBA and a 241 ISO to righties. Higher strikeout percentage to lefties as well. So while I think that guys, I think Jason Kipnis is still a top value. I think Jose Ramirez is a good value. So is Jake Bauers. Lindor is obviously a really good hitter. I kind of feel the same way about Cleveland tonight that I did last night, where they're guys that I think I would lean towards getting in cash and then being underweight on in tournaments.
All right. How about you, Alex? We've got Sampson and Plesac. Obviously not big-time pitcher-friendly conditions at Arlington, but I don't imagine either of these guys will be super popular. Anyway, 92 degrees at first pitch.
Yeah, I think I agree with Adam's take that the ownership is a little bit too high, but they are really good values. So that's one of the biggest questions we have in DFS, and I find in those situations that I'll have these batters in my lineups for sure, but probably not as my number one lineup or number two.
Okay. Adam, what about bats?
From the Texas side?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have respect for Plesac. I think that it's obviously a high upside spot because they are in Texas. And Plesac is still, a bit of an unknown, and there's a lot of power in this lineup. They're not a top stack for me, but they came in my initial crunch, it's like between 5th and 10th highest owned stacks.
Okay. Sounds about right. I think we can move on from this game then, unless you had anything else to add, Alex, on the Texas bats.
They do look a little bit sneaky on DraftKings, but it's because they are priced up really, really high. So maybe if you want to be super contrarian, you can go to them.
All right. Sounds good. Dealing with some significant injuries to that lineup as well, which definitely waters it down. Let's talk about Minnesota and Boston. David Price, Michael Pineda. Alex, yesterday we saw a gem from Rick Porcello. A 10 strikeout, 8-inning performance from Berrios, who, as we know, double-digit strikeouts are always in the cards for him. They're not. And Masahiro Tanaka with a complete game shutout in 10 Ks. Definitely what we had all predicted. What can we predict between Price and Pineda today?
Yeah, man, I like that victory lap there. If we go ahead and recommend every player, we'll for sure get some more right.
You won 100K without having. I mean, was Pineda in your winning or Tanaka in your winning lineup?
Well, I didn't actually win. Someone passed me at the last moment, but I think
I thought you still made like 75,000.
Yeah, it was nice for sure, but I didn't get that thrill of victory, man. Someone came on top of me, so. But
we'll still call that a win.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. This is kind of I'm not really on the pitching in this game just because the team totals are really high and the price tags for pitching are a little bit higher than I would like.
What about bats against somebody like Pineda, who has been very homer prone?
I think this is a pay up to be contrarian game where the ownership's low, the potential is high. Minnesota might be a little bit too contrarian, 0.5% ownership, but the value is pretty bad. Boston, a little bit more manageable, especially Mookie Betts is always priced too low. But not a lot of guys that have good price tags.
Adam, do you have any hitter interest in this one or pitching interest?
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised I didn't get to more Boston stacks in my initial crunch. Hopefully once I start sorting some lineups and factoring ownership in more, I get there because I think it is a really high upside spot, like Alex said, and their price tags overall should keep their ownership down a bit. Individually, I was getting a lot of JD and a lot of Mookie as two of my highest owned outfielders, but as far as the full stack goes, I wasn't getting a ton. And then for Minnesota, Price has been really good this year. There are 30 offenses on the slate, and Minnesota's not cheap. So even though they are really good, it's tough to really be prioritizing anyone from that side.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I would have thought that Boston would be, at least more appealing too. What do you think the reason is that you're not getting as much? Just pricing, real pricing?
Yeah, I think it's probably just because outside of Mookie and JD, like you look at Benintendi and he's good, but there's a bunch of outfielders that I have, better than him in his price range, like Schwarber and like Soto. The same really goes for Bogarts at shortstop. Same goes for Devers at third base. So I think it's just that, outside of Mookie and JD, it's not a lot of top plays at their positions, which does tend to drive down ownership, though, and is why I'm hoping once I sort my lineups, I get more Boston than I have right now.
All right. Hey, by the way, if you haven't signed up yet for Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which are as good as cash that you can use on the site when you sign up through us at Awesemo. It's a very simple way to do it. Go to the homepage at awesemo.com and click on the Spotlight Hitters or Spotlight Pitchers article, and you'll see the Yahoo link. Use the code AWESEMO when you do it, and you get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. They'll match you up to that on your deposit, 1-for-1 match, and you can check it out and not have to worry about people playing 150 lineups every night. There's the 15K MLB guarantee today, 2K to first, 10 entry max. It's not filled yet. $15 entry, 12K MLB guaranteed, and then a bunch of other contests. The lowest management fees around, and oftentimes if you're getting in early and you're checking the lobby in the morning, you'll notice that they have some 0% management fees, no management fee at all. So hop in there, check it out. Go to awesemo.com and you'll see Spotlight Hitters. It's all on the homepage. Very simple. The link's there right at the top. Click it, use the code AWESEMO. Boom, you're in. You get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Good as cash when you do. All right, Adam, St. Louis and Miami. Yamamoto and Jack Flaherty. I mean, I obviously understand that Flaherty is going to be chalky, but I just really don't see – I have a very tough time getting away from Flaherty when his problems have been almost exclusively against lefties this season. He's once again, this Marlins team is once again running out a laundry list of right-handed hitters, and he's been really still perfectly good against them. 32% strikeouts, I believe. I put it this way: I just have a very tough time finding outside of the random rogue 10-run Miami game, which I can't predict anyway. There's nothing I can say about Flaherty that doesn't have him at his specific price points where he's at, make him a really good play tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. He's priced to his overall stat line, but we see pretty drastic splits from him in terms of production allowed and strikeouts. 20.4% strikeout percentage to lefties compared to 32.1 to righties. Every hitter in the Miami lineup, with the exception of JT Riddle, is right-handed tonight. He's allowed Flaherty's allowed a 273 expected WOBA, 130 ISO to righties compared to 369 and 239 respectively to lefties. So like you said, it's most of his troubles have come to lefties, and that artificially deflates his salary. So when you get him against a right-handed heavy team, he's very clearly underpriced. It's a 15-game slate, so I really don't care how popular Flaherty is because he is a top pitcher for me, and I know that it's going to be pretty easy for me to get some low-owned pieces elsewhere because of how many games there are. Right,
absolutely. Adam or Alex, do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just the matchup's too good. The price tag is too low, so I think definitely a top play.
All right. What about either Yamamoto or bats from the St. Louis side, Alex?
I'm seeing Yamamoto. I'm not really interested, but for St. Louis, a couple of guys, Carpenter, Goldschmidt. Have you heard of them? Yeah, I'm getting a little nervous about Goldschmidt because I know the Cardinals dodged a bullet by not re-signing Albert Pujols. Maybe this is they're getting their karma because this guy's power has really regressed this year. So I'm a little nervous about that. But still pretty decent numbers. Definitely not deserving of his price tag on Yahoo of $12. So I think the Cardinals, you can make a really high projected lineup by stacking them up. But the ownership's going to be high as well.
You guys saw the bunt double from Carpenter, right?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Absolutely love it. It's amazing that you don't see it more often. Alex brings up a very valid point, though. Whether or not Goldschmidt's been his 2016 version of himself, he's still really cheap. Matt Carpenter is still really inexpensive. DeYoung at the shortstop position is not expensive either. I mean, this is a St. Louis team that I think at least has to be discussed, especially given that I do believe Yamamoto got a little lucky in that first start if you look at some of his numbers.
Yeah, no question. He doesn't grade out Yamamoto, that is, as a particularly good pitcher. He's not a highly ranked prospect or anything like that. He seems like he has good enough stuff to occasionally have some good starts, but more often than not, he's going to be a guy that we're looking to take hitters against, especially when they're favorably priced, which is the case here. Carpenter obviously having a down year, Goldschmidt not having a great year, but their price tags account for that. And when it comes to hitters, I pretty strongly believe that by the end of the year, most hitters are going to be where they always are. Unless you have some reason for them not to, like an injury or they're just getting old or whatever. But that's not really the case here. So it would be one thing if Carpenter were 5K like he would have been this time last year, but he's not. He's priced to be the 2019 Matt Carpenter that we've seen, not the 2019 Matt Carpenter that more than likely is going to be there at the end of the year. So I'm perfectly fine just playing a bunch of him, a bunch of Goldschmidt. The Young is underpriced for how good he is. Ozuna's got a bunch of power, and then everyone else in the lineup is really cheap. So I think that it's a good spot for the Cardinals, and I expect to be getting a pretty fair share of them.
Yeah, me too. Arizona, Colorado. We've got Merrill Kelly and Antonio Senzatella. Adam, Merrill Kelly hasn't been bad, and actually you did some real solid research on him before his first start of the season and had discovered that his fastball velocity was way up from what it had been, and that he should be different than anyone was really projecting him to be. So far, you've been right, but he's also not particularly cheap either at Chase Field today. Any interest in him? I'm not going to ask you about Senzatella, obviously, but any interest in Merrill Kelly?
No, still not a lot of strikeouts for him. He's been okay at limiting damage, but he just doesn't really strike guys out. And Colorado, even though they're outside of cores, their lineup right now is is pretty intimidating. You have four clearly good hitters at the top. Then you have Daniel Murphy, who maybe is starting to turn things around. Then you have 3 or 4 below average hitters, but not the worst lineup, especially at the top. And it's not a really favorable price tag on Kelly.
How about you, Alec?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, he's priced in the mid-range, which is way. I don't really understand how he earned that, but definitely not on my radar.
Okay. Well, what about this game in general? Bats here against Senzatella. Alex, are you on these expensive Arizona hitters?
I think Arizona is a much better value on FanDuel and Yahoo. On DraftKings, I see some contrarian value. So I think you can definitely go there on all 3 sites.
Adam, where are you at on these Arizona bats?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Alex there. Didn't get to a lot of them, at least initially on DraftKings. They are pretty expensive. There are some spots where I would prefer, other players. Christian Walker in tournaments, I think, is interesting as a one-off just because he does have massive power. He's one of the cheapest guys in the order. He's kind of hidden batting 6th, so he shouldn't really have any ownership. But as far as stacks go, I'm more interested in the Colorado side.
All right. I will say, though, Arizona going virtually unowned on DraftKings, at least what we have them projected at 1% ownership, 6% top stack probability. So there's something there, but, it's still, as you can see, their value is also very low. Top value on DraftKings is also very low. Who are your top bats from Colorado, Adam?
Arenado is who I was getting the most of in my initial crunch on DraftKings from Colorado. But also Trevor Story at a shortstop position that isn't great. Blackman and Dahl are pretty tough to get to because the outfield's so deep, but that does keep their ownership down. It does make them, pretty strong contrarian plays.
Are you on the Rockies at all, Alex?
I think you can go there as a contrarian play, but I prefer the Diamondbacks for both value and just contrarianness. They have the team total about 3/4 of a run higher, and the ownership's still low, so I like it.
All right, fair enough. We got 4 games to go. Making good speed here, fellas. Oakland, Baltimore, Alex, Brett Anderson, Gabriel Inoa. Do we have an update on pitcher ownership for Anderson here? Because earlier in the day, he was coming in around 10, 12%. He was getting a decent amount of ownership. He's such a low strikeout guy. Do you see yourself getting to any of him on 2-pitcher sites? Right now we have him at 10% still.
Yeah, I mean, the value is reasonable. There's not a lot of guys as cheap as he is on DraftKings that are playable at 6,200. On FanDuel and Yahoo, relatively more expensive, so I don't really see myself landing on him. strikeouts are bad, but the matchup is really good. So, I mean, it's just a spot where if you need a 6K pitcher, he's a decent value.
Are you getting there, Adam?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I do think that once I sort lineups, like I know that I'm going to end up giving priority to Mitch Keller, who's on DraftKings $700 more, and DraftKings is the only site that I have interest in Anderson. So I don't think I'm going to get tons of him because I'll just get more Keller, assuming that weather cooperates. But like Alex said, if you need a 6K pitcher, then Anderson's there. There's a pretty decent chance that you get 5-6 innings of 4 strikeouts and not a lot of runs, and you can just kind of move on. So in lineups where I'm stacking an expensive team and still want some good one-offs, I think Anderson offers some value.
Okay. Do you have interest in bats here against or anything for Baltimore?
Not really. Chris Davis stands out at his price point. There is some cheap power on Oakland, but it's also not a great park for hitting. And with so many good offensive spots to target, I'm not getting a lot of Oakland.
Okay, Alex, are you getting any hitters here from either side at O.co? Not a good park whatsoever for hitting purposes.
Yeah, I think Oakland is really standing out to me. He's quite a bit below average pitcher. The team total of the A's is 5.5, and the price tags are all pretty palatable, and the ownership is pretty low. So I think I'll definitely have a lot of Oakland if these numbers hold.
Okay. Yeah, they are routinely underpriced, so it does make a lot of sense. Dodgers in San Francisco. Alex, we've got Clayton Kershaw at 11-2 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's 10-7, which is $1,300 cheaper than Verlander, but also more expensive than DeGrom, a lot more expensive than Woodruff, a whole lot more expensive than Jack Flaherty. The list goes on. I think, that kind of stands out and takes some of the shine off of him. Kershaw's 56 on Yahoo. Yeah, he's still a good pitcher, but I'll ask you this. Is Kershaw really worth this from what we've been seeing from him this year?
I don't think so. I mean, he's only struck out 24% of batters on the year. The Giants are a really good matchup, but as far as limiting runs, but I think that they just don't strike out at a high enough rate to really justify that top tier pricing for Kershaw. I have them at about 5% below average with their lineup tonight, or projected lineup. And I think, I think that going to the mid-range is probably the optimal strategy.
Adam, I'm guessing we're all of the same mindset here.
Yeah, it's just really tough to come up with any real logical reason to get a lot of Kershaw because, if you're looking for safety and run prevention, which, isn't a strategy I really buy into anyway, but he's close enough to Verlander where you should just go there. If you're looking for, point per dollar upside, you can save a lot of money getting, if it's not DraftKings, getting the Cole Hamels, who's kind of been the same pitcher, but also, getting to like a Flaherty or any of the other guys we talked about. So there's no real angle for me liking Kershaw here, no matter what I'm looking for.
Okay. Reasonable. Any hitters? Dodger bats?
Yeah, I got some interest in the Dodgers. Not a top stack for me, but you do have very affordable prices on Jock Peterson, Verdugo, Justin Turner. Cody Bellinger deservedly is really, really expensive, but overall a cheap stack with the Dodgers. A lot of good hitters, especially at the top and in the middle. Sean Anderson, just kind of a middling prospect who isn't really anything special. So I do like the Dodgers.
Alex, do you find yourself liking the Dodgers or getting to any of them?
I think you can go Dodgers. Definitely not a top stack of the night with only a 4.7 team total, but the price is right and the ownership is low, so they make a nice contrarian play.
All right, yeah. Right now we have Cleveland with the highest top stack probability on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's Cleveland as well, and on Yahoo, it's Cleveland as well. Obviously. That would make sense. Ownership, though, Washington and Cleveland coming in really high on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Cleveland, Texas, and Washington. And then on Yahoo, it is Cleveland, the Mets, St. Louis, and Texas. Dodgers coming in really, really low on Yahoo. And my assumption would be they'd be pretty low on DraftKings as well. Let's see here.
Yeah.
1.5%.
I like this a lot because, like, on each site we can recommend different plays, and that maximizes our victory lap percentage.
Hey, I'm just reading off the numbers that are on your sheet, man. All right. I don't think we need to talk much about San Francisco bats. We do have 2 games to go here: San Diego and Milwaukee. Adam, Brandon Woodruff's good, man. I buy into it. Sure, I'd love to see a 15% swinging strike rate, but he's done a lot to make up for not missing a ton of bats. He's just still getting a lot of strikeouts, gets a lot of called strikes as well. And now he's got a matchup against the San Diego Padres, who have the highest K rate against right-handed pitching. A pitcher-friendly park, not what it used to be, but it's still good. And a pretty high win probability, I would say, with Logan Allen on the mound for the Padres. What do you make of Woodruff here?
Yeah, I like Woodruff a lot. The Padres have a right-handed heavy lineup. They have their active roster has the highest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching this year, and Woodruff's been really good. He's been good against both sides of the plate, but against righties, he has just shy of a 30% strikeout percentage this season. He hasn't allowed much production either. He's held righties to a 268 expected WOBA, a .081 ISO allowed, 29.3% strikeout percentage, as I mentioned. A little bit more expensive than Flaherty. If Flaherty were on the slate, I would get tons of Woodruff. As is, I still think I get a lot, but Flaherty's presence and Keller's presence will keep it down a little bit.
Okay. Where do you come in on Woodruff, Alex?
I think he's a great pitcher. I mean, facing the Padres, they have one of the lower team totals on the slate. Their lineup, I'm not sure if we have a confirmed lineup, but I have them striking out significantly more than your average team. And when you have a pitcher striking out 29% of batters on the year, that adds up to a nice fantasy potential.
Okay. Adam, what do you make of the Brewers total here being 4.3 against Allen and presumably a decent amount of bullpen action?
Yeah, I mean, I think Allen's decent. If you were looking to roster him, it would be on Yahoo at $25. I'm not interested on the other sites. I think he's okay. It's not a spot that I'm really looking to get to for Milwaukee. Ryan Braun, I think, is okay, but like if the weather cooperates, I would much rather get Juan Soto than Braun. So it makes it kind of tough. Just not a spot that I see me getting to a lot of.
I find the price is really interesting on DraftKings for these right-handers, though. Like Braun and Kane and a few others are really inexpensive. I don't believe we have a lineup yet, but if Aguilar's batting 5th or so against the left-hander, I don't know. I find it remotely interesting. Do you have any hitter interest on either side of this game, Alex?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Kane and Braun on DraftKings and Yahoo are pretty nice values, and they got Braun has a lot of power, so I think that makes a pretty nice one-off. Kane, a good value, but not as much power. He steals some bases, though, so I think you can definitely go there.
Okay. One more game to go, but before we do, if you want to sign up at Awesemo, get Awesemo Plus membership. You can get 50% off your first month, and it's very simple. All you do when you select your plan is use the promo code Deeper Dive. One word, Deeper Dive, get 50% off your first month. That's for ownership projections, the player projections, not just for baseball, but for all of our sports. You've got excellent written content from all of us that slave over it day after day. And, of course, the Top Stack tool from Alex that we reference on the show. What else? The lineup builder, Fantasy Cruncher add-on. There's so much. You want to see it for yourself. And there's the premium Slack chat where all of our subs and all of our guys are chatting throughout the day. So be sure to check that out and use the promo code Deeper Dive, one word, when you sign up. Hopefully we see you over there. Okay. One game to go. Seattle, Kansas City. Look at this time, fellas. 5:51. That's solid work right there. We're even going to get our stacks in. Seattle, Kansas City. Alex, you say Kikuchi, Homer, Bailey. Kikuchi ownership right now projected really high. DraftKings 35%. Crazy. And not so much really anywhere else, but that is a lot of ownership on a very pedestrian pitcher, but he is very, very cheap. He's like what Homer Bailey is usually priced at. And then Bailey's got a matchup against the K-heavy Seattle team that's still without Haniger, lost Jay Bruce a little while ago, and now they're without Edwin Encarnacion. this lineup has become very bad very quickly. What's your take on both arms tonight?
I think Yusei Kikuchi is at the optimizer play on DraftKings, where he's just a really good value. I have him projected for 13.4. Salary's only 5.3K, so adds up to 2.5 points per dollar. But if he has that ownership, I'd definitely rather stack against him than roster him, because especially as you go up in stakes, people gravitate towards those high value plays, and the underlying numbers aren't that great. I mean, Kansas City has a 4.6 team total. They strike out less than average, so really it's only the price tag that you can really like here.
Yeah, Adam, I can't say I have a whole lot of love for Kikuchi today, just based on the wild ownership alone. Which side are you coming in on here?
Yeah, same as Alex, same as you. He's there if you need a really, really cheap guy. He's basically Brett Anderson except worse. But I mean, like there's no. I wrote about him in the deep dive article today. Like there were no good stats to point out. He's not very good. He has like a 4.55 PCRA. He struck out 16.5% of hitters. It's simply that he is really, really cheap, and if you need someone at that price tag, he projects better than like Senzatella or Gabriel and Noah or guys like that. So I don't really want to get to him all that much. I don't think that I will, and I do think that there is merit in going to Kansas City because they do have some right-handed power. You have Whit Merrifield, you have Mondesi, you have Soler, who has a ton of power. Bonifacio is back. Tressler Cuthbert is cheap, so they do have some right-handed bats. They can take advantage of Kikuchi.
Okay. You talked about the stacks, both of you guys. What about Homer Bailey and the other side of this one, Adam? You got Bailey against, as I mentioned, a Seattle team that looks nothing like it did at the beginning of the season. But Bailey's price tag looks nothing like it did last time he started.
Yeah, I'd have some interest in Bailey if Mitch Keller weren't there at basically the same price point. So I'm not getting to much, if any, Bailey here. You know, there are strikeouts in the Seattle lineup. It's not as potent as it was earlier in the year without Bruce or Encarnacion, like you said, but it's just not that same price tag for Bailey. And even though he is decent, you know, I think Mitch Keller is a much better pitcher than Bailey is, and he's in just as good, you know, or better of a spot.
Do you want to add anything here on the Bailey Mariners matchup, Alex?
Nah, he's not really on my radar for tonight. So,
okay. Well, that'll do it. We got a few minutes here. We'll close it out with our top stacks. Before we do, though, I would ask you and would politely request that if you appreciate the show, you like what we do here, you want to see more, give us a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us out a lot, and we greatly appreciate it. So thanks for always tuning in and checking out the deeper dive each and every day. Subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, so you always know when we have new content coming out and when we go live. All right, fellas, top stacks. Let's get a little bit unique here. What do you have, Adam?
I like Houston. They look okay on the stack tool, and I'm getting a lot of them. I'm getting to a lot of Cardinals, though they might be a little bit overowned. And then I'm with Alex. I do like Arizona. I think that they are lower owned than they should be with their run total.
Okay. Alex, close it out.
Arizona as a chalky play on FanDuel and contrarian on DraftKings. And then as far as chalk stacks, I like the Angels the best.
Okay. Yeah, if we're going with a semi-chalky one, I do like St. Louis against Yamamoto. I definitely think that he got very lucky in that initial start. Doesn't have great swing and miss stuff. And Adam mentioned that Logan Allen is not a bad pitcher. He's not. But I think these Milwaukee bats are just too cheap given the fact that they're facing a rookie left-hander in a park that isn't nearly as bad for pitch or hitting as it used to be. So really discounted, particularly on DraftKings, depending on what the lineup looks like. And hopefully we don't get any rainouts. Any updates you have for us, Alex? We do have a minute or so here. Any weather updates you want to talk about, or should we just hold off and check the Awesemo weather account?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the DC radar. It looks like the coverage is pretty low.
Okay, so it'll be postponed.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, what I'm seeing is that there's not anything concerning on the radar as of yet, but if you go to feature mode, the radar looks really, really bad, like around game time. So what I'm going to do is wait a little bit until 5 o'clock and see what the radar update looks like, and go from there.
All right. Sounds good. Anything, Adam?
Nope.
All right. Thanks for tuning in as always. We'll see you back here tomorrow. The three of us will be back once again on the Deeper Dive. Live Before Lock is coming up next. They're taking you up till 7:05. We'll catch you back here tomorrow, same time on the Deeper Dive. Good luck tonight.